By 1996, Microsoft had grown from a small startup into one of the wealthiest corporations in the world, and those who had been there since the earlier days found themselves millionaires. Two of these veteran employees had always loved playing games, and with enough money now to do whatever they wanted, decided to make their very own company. Sadly, neither had any experience whatsoever in entertainment, having only worked on operating systems and functional products. But a mutual friend then introduced them to John Carmack of the legendary id Software, who convinced them that they should license the Quake engine and make a game. The guys were convinced and decided that the time had come to follow their dreams. And so, Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington bandied about a couple of names for their new venture, including Fruitfly Ensemble, Hollowbox, and Rhino Scar, but finally settled on something far simpler: Valve. After the Carmack meeting, Newell and Harrington returned to Seattle and started their company, legally signing it into existence on Newell's wedding day.
So my motivations in starting a games company really grew out of what motivates me professionally. Most of my motivations are social. I really enjoy working with smart people to build products that have impact on a lot of different people. In 1996, when I was thinking about what my options were, I had a lot of freedom and a lot of choices as to what I could do. I could build a boat and sail around the world or go on vacation. And the thing that I really enjoyed was working in a certain kind of environment, which is what we were able to do at Valve.
But where companies like Bungie had started with one guy and worked their way up, Valve wanted to be producing big budget games right away, and it was going to take more than two people, who had never made a game, to do that. And so Valve began to scout for talent. They went against the industry's standard operating procedure and searched for not just professionals, but modders, recognizing that some of them had more talent than working pros. Right off the bat, Valve was breaking new ground. The company was entirely financed by its two founders, allowing the company to take risks that an owned studio could not. However, because the company was just two guys fulfilling a lifelong dream, nobody else had any faith in them. Finding a publisher willing to distribute their products was nearly impossible, especially since Newell and Harrington were claiming their game would feature some incredibly sophisticated technology. Publishers couldn't believe that they would deliver on those promises. They finally lucked out when they met with Sierra Online, a publisher hoping to put out a 3D action game, preferably on the Quake engine. They were impressed by the team and had enough confidence in them to sign them on for a deal, though only a one-game deal, which left them room to back out if the game was a bust. The young company revealed their game at E3 1997, Half-Life. It quickly became the most talked about game of the convention for its advanced technologies and immersive atmosphere. The guys had done it. Valve and Sierra looked to have a hit on their hands. But by the holiday season, when Half-Life was supposed to be released, the team at Valve realized that they didn't have a finished product yet. They were forced to delay the game's release. The problem was that their publisher, Sierra, had already begun their advertising campaign for what was supposed to be their biggest game of the year. When Valve announced that they would be holding off release, it nearly tanked their partnership. Beyond this, once they decided to push the release date, they also decided to take another look at the game. With a year of experience under their belt, the crew had learned to do all kinds of new things that hadn't been put into the current build. And so, the Valve team took the incredibly risky step of scrapping most of the work they'd done in order to start over and implement everything they'd learned. Most fledgling developers would be unable to fund a ground-up rewrite of a game like that, but Newell and Harrington were willing to dip deep into their own pockets to do it.
If you ask your typical Valve fan, Valve's products are always late, right? Of the resource, quality, schedule, stool, we're always willing to relax schedule first to make it higher quality at the expense of everything else. Our view is that a product is late for a little while, but a product will suck forever.
As they revamped their title, Valve continued to push their release from Spring 98 to Summer 98, to Fall 98, to Thanksgiving 98. But then in September, a leaked demo meant only for manufacturers hit the internet and created a sensation. Half-Life became the breakout game of the year before it had even been released. The hype reached a fever pitch, and Half-Life finally hit shelves in November 1998. The reaction was positively stunning. Instead of the traditional method of telling a story through cutscenes, or not telling a story at all, Half-Life never left the perspective of its hero, Gordon Freeman. As such, the story was presented in real time, with the player feeling like they were actually involved in it, as opposed to passively watching it. Making heavy use of scripting, the game also had many interesting moments happening around the player, from coworkers being eaten by monsters to catwalks breaking. In particular, sequences like the opening, with a long conversation followed by an experiment gone wrong, almost plays more like an interactive film than a traditional video game. On top of this were the game's bleeding-edge graphics and animations and a sudden twist halfway through the game.
Rescued at last! Thank God you're here!
All of these combined to make a game, already expected to be a hit, transcend expectations. The Freshman Company, founded by two guys with no entertainment experience whatsoever, made what was to be the biggest game of the year, which would eventually go on to be one of the most legendary video games of all time. To this day, it remains one of the best-selling games in history, all the more impressive considering how much larger the gaming market is now than in 1998. With all the dizzying success, everyone wanted to know when they would see a sequel. But they were to find that the immediate future of Half-Life wouldn't come from Valve, but from the gamers themselves. Tune in next time to watch Half-Life take on a life all its own.